Complete decades. Well up and running, baby. Complete decades. Well up and running, baby. Complete decades. Well up and running, baby. Complete decades. Well up and running, baby.
Hello and welcome to the very first ever episode of the Complete Tech Heads podcast with me, Tom Edwards. It's going to be a place where I'll be discussing all things technology, including social media, including AI, including digital marketing, search, consumer tech, basically anything that I find interesting and hope that you will too. You may already have noticed that the podcast itself is named after a great British entrepreneur in Chabuddy G. And so there is a fair amount of a business angle here as well, I think. So on to my first ever guest. So this week I am speaking with Benji Vaughan. Benji is an entrepreneur, the founder and CEO of a company called Disciple Media, which is a place where creators and businesses can build communities outside of the traditional social platforms. But Benji's also a really interesting guy with a really interesting background. He was a psychedelic trance musician and record label exec, I suppose you would call him. So his background is very much in the music industry, and he's clearly a really creative guy. If you're watching the video version of this, you'll be able to see he's got a whole array of different random musical instruments in the background. So we talk a bit about music. We talk a lot about AI, which is something that Benji's been experimenting with a lot. We talk about communities, we talk about creating connections in the digital world, and we talk a fair bit about Disciple Media and where they're at the moment. The company itself has worked with all sorts of different characters, including the Rolling Stones. They started off in the music world, but they've got a whole bunch of different influencers, fitness influencers, nutrition influencers, all of that kind of good stuff. So lots of interesting stuff in there. I hope you enjoy the conversation. I certainly did. And please do let me know if you have any thoughts, questions, or anything else. I would love to hear them. This is the very first episode, so I'm looking to get all the feedback I can. Well, that's it from me. I hope you enjoy the conversation. And without further ado, here is Benji Vaughan. Benji, how are you doing?
Really good, thank you.
Good to see you. For the people listening, this is the third time that we've recorded this intro due to a few minor technical hitches, but welcome to my very first ever podcast.
It is an honor to be here, as I've said for the third
time. Great. And so for the third time, obviously I know you very well. We have worked together in the past. But for our listeners, could you give me a brief intro to yourself and to Disciple Media?
Sure. So I started out my working life in the music industry as a electronic music producer and a partner at an independent label. Through that work, I built a fascination with building fan bases, audiences, communities, and started to really see in a kind of internet-enabled world how massively valuable a committed, deeply engaged community was to initially a music brand or record label, and then set up Disciple because I saw this problem where everyone was committing these valuable audiences they had to things like Facebook and Twitter, and that as that kind of social media evolved, there might evolve a new market, which is a new market for businesses such as musicians and creators to build their own communities on their own platforms where they own the relationship with their community members and they can really kind of define the culture and the outcomes they're looking to get from an online community. And that was kind of why we started Disciple. Initially, it was purely around building specialized communities around Pacific bands. Like we work with people like the Rolling Stones over here in the UK, Luke Bryan over in the US. And then we started to see a lot of the dynamics going on in the music world. I build up a fan base on social media and then try and own that relationship. That fan base was starting to be mimicked in the world of online creators. And Disciple, as we know it today, started in, when was it, late 2018. And it's really a platform to help online creators own the relationship with their core communities so that they can build thriving revenue generating businesses out of them without being totally enslaved or captured by social media platforms.
Right. And so the problem that you're solving essentially is that basically if I get like, 5,000 followers on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter or whatever it may be, in order to actually speak to those followers, I'm enthralled to the algorithm at all times, right? Like, and usually you can only ever access like 1% of your audience on like Instagram or something. So your solution to that problem is to create apps or spaces online that people own themselves, and so they can talk to all of them, and they don't have to rely on the algorithm to distribute for them.
Yeah, exactly. And social media platforms are very much one size fits all platforms, and that model they force everyone into is a model of scale. You have to build up millions and millions of followers that are then going to monetize effectively through selling your audience to brands, whether that's through sponsorship or through ad roll.
Right.
Which is great for the kind of archetypal influencer, but there's a huge amount of value that can exist in somebody having 10,000 followers, 5,000 followers. We've got people with 1,000, 2,000 people inside their disciple communities, but the members are paying, upwards of $1,000 a year to be members. So they create great little businesses out of them.
And so it's what we would refer to in the marketing world as very bottom of funnel, right? Like
exactly.
It's very highly engaged audiences. So you're not going for the scale at the top end. I guess lots of your customers have got big audiences on social media already, but they bring people into the funnel, and the most highly engaged of their audience.
Exactly. I mean, a classic example, we work, I'm not going to give any names away here, but we work with a creator who
well, you've already given us the Rolling Stones.
Oh yeah,
can't get much bigger than that.
We work with a creator whose main social channel is Instagram. On Instagram, she posts about getting fit, healthy nutrition, these kind of things. She's got about 100,000 followers on Instagram, so big audience, but not enough to generate big revenue from.
Right.
But she's managed to build a community with us of, I think it's currently sitting at about 8,000 members, and they're paying $20 a month.
Wow, you do the math.
So she's generating $1.5–2 million a year, and that business is hers. All those members are hers. The data is hers. She's totally customized her specific use case, her specific audience, the kind of culture and vibe she wants to build in her community. It's her business. We're just an enabler providing a software platform.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, that's incredible numbers, and you can't. There's nowhere else that you can do that with the big boys, is there? That kind of
because they're not built for that. They're it's like comparing Amazon to Shopify, as we often say. If you could, everyone in the world could just sell their stuff through Amazon, but by doing that, they would totally water down their brand. Fight for the bottom on price.
Yeah.
Whereas you can go to Shopify, build a beautiful store that really has a special brand and a special aesthetic to it, which is going to attract a specific audience that gets drawn to that brand and the values of that brand. It's a different way of doing things, and both are valid.
Yeah. And so for the most part, then we're talking like fitness influencers, I guess, like nutrition, but you've also got a few like strange ones, right? Have you still got the cow?
You've still got a few strange ones. We've got some pretty wacky ones on there. What's happened over time is we've really started, when we launched this in 2018, we kind of just thought, okay, we're going to build a platform where creators can build their business. The sort of way we thought is they build their audience on social media and then they build their business with Disciple. What we've learned over time is there is this new kind of middle class of the creator economy being built, which is fundamentally about people who have an expertise in a certain area. It's typically around personal development or professional development, both of which people are willing to pay money for. If it's going to be about getting fitter, getting healthier, getting your mind stronger, having a better perspective on life, or becoming a better digital marketing or Python coder, you're going to want to join a place where you can get access to the best content. You can network with the best people around that area. And you get certain individuals who are building up it's less, in the old world of the creative economy, it's about building influence. Our typical customers are building reputation around a very specialist area,
Right.
where they can then take that reputation into their own platform, and people are going to really commit to building their professional or personal development through the both access to that host, but also really importantly, access to the network of other people who join their communities.
So this is the subsection that you recently wrote. That was it a blog or a LinkedIn post? I think I saw I
Yeah, I
saw it
did
on LinkedIn. I don't know if it was
a
a blog or
LinkedIn post. I think it was called "We Found the Creator Middle Class and It's Middle Aged."
right. Yeah, exactly right. So yeah.
Because that's kind of, it's a little bit slightly clickbaity, but the
No, but I found it really interesting. I mean, look, neither of us are massively spring chickens, but like I found it interesting because I think you are seeing more of that. You are seeing more people kind of realizing that. I think you mentioned to me offline. You're sort of saying often it's the kind of people that would go into consultancy, right? They've built up a lifetime of expertise, whereas now what they're doing with it is taking that into digital communities and getting subscribers and
absolutely,
presumably scaling much quicker
and
than
being
they
able
would
to
be able
scale
to
way
do.
beyond they used to be able to. Totally. I saw a report recently. 70% of people earning over 100 grand a year as creators are over 40 today.
Wow, really?
Yeah,
That's an incredible stat.
yeah.
Because
And the
you
massive,
just assume that it's just, cool
you
young
just assume
20
it's kids talking.
somethings on
Still, we could think it's kids talking
yeah,
about
yeah,
video games, etc. But it's really, there's still this thing that creators and influencers are the same. Influencers are generally younger. They're generally, if you're an influencer, you want to stick purely on social channels. It's about scale of
yeah,
audience on if you're an influencer. But the notion of a creator is diversified massively, and there's this huge new market appearing of people who have an expertise. And generally, if you're going to have an expertise, you need to have experience. That takes years to build up.
yeah.
People are
Well,
getting
I
in.
mean, yeah, that's it. We're going to talk about AI in a bit, but
Exactly.
you
They
know,
get to they get that 10, 15 years under their belt in a specialist career, and they're suddenly realizing that expertise they have is hugely valuable if they can build a community around it. So yeah, that's the kind of, there's a recent community called Chief that launched in the US. It launched in 2019.
Chief.
It's a Chief. It's a
Okay.
community for female business leaders. It launched in 2019. It just raised money at a valuation of 1.1 billion on the
Wow.
back of 20,000 members. So these businesses become hugely valuable, hugely quickly,
Yeah.
because you've got people who really want personal, professional development. They're willing to pay a lot for it. They want access to like-minded people. Not going to get that on LinkedIn or Facebook. If
Yeah.
you can be the person that creates that kind of magnet that draws those people in, builds a network, it can scale exponentially very quickly. It's very, very sticky, and these businesses are really starting to get hugely valuable.
Yeah. Subscribers. Real actual subscribers, not just click a button subscribers, but actual
Exactly.
real life legit subscribers that you can then interact with on a much more meaningful and purposeful level, I guess, than you tend to do in like
Yeah.
the comment section or whatever.
And we think very deeply about this at Disciple, that in a world that's changing faster and faster and going through such rapid technological change, individuals in this society, especially kind of information workers, people working in software engineering, law, finance, these kind of areas, which are going to hugely disrupted over the next few years.
Yeah.
They can't rely on whatever company they're working for today to be where their professional development takes place. They
Right.
need to have
Yeah.
that solid thing that wherever they're working, they come back to the community they're part of, which is a network of people that can support them and help them through this rapid change that's going on, help them retool, reskill as things go through this profound change.
Yeah, well, I mean, speaking of all of the changes in the world, like that everything is being disrupted by AI. And like even as you're talking, when you're talking about people who've built up these years and years of expertise, and like lawyers and these jobs that require a deep wealth of knowledge built up over many years, I feel like actually a lot of that is now replicable with LLMs, right? You can ask ChatGPT something that you previously would ask a lawyer, and okay, it might hallucinate a load of nonsense in its answer, but it's passing the bar exam, etc. Like, how big is the risk, do you think, to the type of creators that come to your platform from disruption by AI?
I think that AI for our typical customer at Disciple is a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
I think it creates the need for communities, or creates the urgency for communities, makes that urgency even more profound than it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
People need to have that constant thing that they're part of, where there's real human connection going on, where there's the network that's teaching them.
Yeah.
At the same time, the AI tools that are coming online at such a rapid rate enable our customers to do a huge amount more with less resource. One of the difficulties of building an online community at scale is resource, and AI profoundly changes their ability to rapidly generate content, rapidly generate insights into their community. So a lot of that kind of asymmetry, for example, exists between social media platforms like Facebook and independent communities, starts to get evened out, because AI enables them to figure out things like who to connect members together with, to really understand their community and manage to. We're building tools at Disciple now that not only help them create content, help them analyze their data better, but it starts to say to them, you should connect these two members together. They've got a lot in common. So it starts to building a community of real value is really resource heavy, and AI is shifting and making it a lot easier and making independent communities a lot more powerful. And it's really, as I say, starting to take away that massive advantage that social platforms have because of their huge data sets and the AI they've been using for 10 years. You can now apply to a community with 500 people and build huge value from it.
Yeah. I mean, so I also think about, I think about this a lot, and I wonder if in the future we're likely to get a human premium, in the same way now that like handmade things are more valuable because there's a real person behind it. And yes, of course, you could get a factory replicated version from, like China or whatever. Actually, having some artisan who's built something for you commands a premium because there's a real human being there. I wonder if we're going to start getting to a point where that human premium is going to be applied to interpersonal connection in things like the communities that you're talking about, but also in like business, in marketing agencies and stuff like that. Yes, you might have an option where we'll just pump out loads of content for you using ChatGPT and Midjourney, or the premium version, you'll actually get real human beings thinking and spending time agonizing over being creative on your behalf. And I mean, do you ever think about that kind of idea and that
Yeah, I think about that a lot. I think the slightly dystopian future where we are all online on social platforms, but whether we're talking to a human or to a chatbot or to an AI chatbot is truly terrifying.
It's already like that a bit, I think. Like if I look at my inbox, I feel like a lot of the emails are just been pumped out.
Exactly.
The sales emails.
I think over the next years, that's really going to get very difficult for society as a whole. And I think that will really make people value real connection, as in real world connection. I think it will make small vetted communities more valuable, where it's very clear, like the host of this community is not allowing trolls and bots to just kind of run the conversation here.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, I think a lot about its impact on art, whether that's music art, writing, visual art, filmmaking. And I think it's already getting to the point where the craft of being an artist is getting taken over by AI, which is going to make it very tough to be an artist in any field. But the reality is, from my experience so far of AI, it can replicate the craft. It can't replicate humans' desire to express something that connects with other humans.
Yeah. I think that's
and that it will never be able to figure out how to do, which is going to fundamentally, it's tough, but it's going to mean a lot of people won't be able to make a living in it anymore because they're craftsmen. They're not expressing something uniquely human to other humans.
Yeah.
But
it's just art is just communication, right? And when you boil it right down, it's just an artist saying something to thousands of other people in a unique way.
Yeah. So I can't remember. There's a quote I always like to rip off, and I can't remember who it came from. But I've forgotten what it is now, but it goes along the lines of entertainment engages minds, but art changes minds.
Nice.
And I can't see AI changing minds, moving human culture forward. That's what humans do.
Yeah. Well, I think
it's extremely good at replicating those things and just, and sort of creating froth that keeps people engaged. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I don't think the Picassos, Bob Dylans, Beatles, Aphex Twins of the world need to be worried.
No, I think it's. I mean, because you could get, I'm sure, a very good like ersatz Bob Dylan out of an AI, right? You could get a simulacrum of Bob Dylan very convincingly. Yeah. I'm sure. Like I've seen, there's an Oasis AI that kind of sounded quite a bit like Oasis, but also like weird as well, and not exactly there. But like there are a few, like this Drake. I'm sure you'll have seen that, and Kanye. People have done, but they're still imitating, right? Like it's not
it's
like
still imitation.
They haven't made the next Kanye or the next Drake.
And humans generally, most, you can see I'm sitting in a room full of synths, but botching stuff together in here. What humans do really well is they tend to imitate stuff, and in the process, through error, come up with stuff that's totally unique.
Yeah,
I don't see AI doing that. It's, I think it's tough. I think there could well be a lot less musicians and writers and creative writers, that is, and visual artists in 10 years' time.
Well, I wonder, right? So, because yes, you're going to get a lot of output, but in the arts especially, I just wonder if people are actually going to care, because I've heard somebody make this comparison before, so it's not mine, but if you look at like chess now, right? Like computers are vastly better than humans at chess, and that's like measurable. But nobody sits around watching Stockfish play itself. People we still watch Magnus Carlsen, right? Because he's the best human, and so we still of want to engage with the human being who's doing something really hard, because we can empathize with it, and we can sort of like hero worship him if you're a
Yeah,
jazz fan.
I hadn't thought that's a really good analogy. I mean,
So you can see that being the case in the
it's like you
arts,
can go and
right?
see a hologram of ABBA performing today, which is great because they obviously can't be bothered to go on the stage themselves, but
Yeah.
it's not
Well,
the
I
same
don't know if
thing.
I don't know if they'd make it. Would they? They've got to be getting on by now.
Exactly. They wouldn't fit in the cat suits anymore. Um, but it's yeah. So you know, and at the same time, I'm sitting here saying these things. I've just been for the first time in about 10 years making music recently, and I'm getting to the point of being able to release it. And all these AI tools are just making it amazing.
I bet. I bet.
I used to work with a an album artist called Thorgerson. It's absolute genius, amazing man. He did all the like Pink Floyd stuff in the 70s, Led Zeppelin, Peter Gabriel, amazing dude, who really sadly died about 7, 8 years ago. And I'm now able to speak to Midjourney and say, look, I want something along the lines of what Storm would do in this, and prompt it and get stuff back. I'm like, wow, that is so cool.
Amazing.
And it's not like I still have to make the decision whether I like it and then kind of saying that's good, but now let's take that idea and evolve it. That stuff used to just be a nightmare, and it actually used to mean some people, you know, in the old days, I'd have had to hire an agency for thousands of pounds, which is creating employment, etc. That I'm no longer doing, which has downsides, but purely selfishly for the creative side, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, and you're a for any listeners who aren't aware of your musical background, you're an electronic musician, right? So you would well, I would suppose that actually this would slot into your kind of musical creative process much more quickly and easily and naturally than like, you know, an acoustic singer-songwriter or whatever, who's already probably got all the tools they need. They've got a mic and they've
I'm
got a
using a
guitar.
new tool that Google made called, got it here on my phone, what's it called? Came out about a week ago. It's the only thing I've found so far that's good. And it's the classic case, it's called AI Test Kitchen.
Okay,
And
I haven't heard of that. I'll check it out.
They say when you go to it and load it up, okay, you know, prompt it with create me a jazz tune or a soft piano tune. It sounds absolutely awful. But the
Sounds great.
for electronic stuff is amazing, because I say to it things like, give it a prompt of a piano falling down the stairs, and I get this incredible, like these weird noises that I can then put in Ableton and piss around with.
Amazing.
You know, that's the kind of classic thing where, you know, it's as much as it's hard to tell at this point, but a lot of these technologies, they appear and you think it's going to put a whole load of people out of work, and then it just turns out a whole load of new people appear and figure out how to manipulate them and create things we could never have imagined, that needed the humans to have that creativity to do that.
Well, that's like the bull case, isn't it? That it just sparks this incredible creative revolution all over the world. We all become massively productive and you know, just living standards skyrocket everywhere. Which I'm
definitely a bull case. I'm slightly skeptical at this point, having spent a lot of time playing around with language models and all these tools the last 6 months. I'm getting very skeptical of big tech companies telling governments it's time to put up the drawbridge.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So what side are you on then, on the regulation? Then?
I think I think I smell a rat.
Okay.
Big tech companies telling governments, lobbying governments, pull up the drawbridge so that we own this. We're the only ones you can trust to have this incredibly powerful technology. So Amazon, Google, Facebook, OpenAI, stroke Microsoft, just continue to dominate and get ever more powerful. And suddenly we find there's regulations where I cannot have, as I do, my own language model sitting on my laptop, building my own stuff with it.
So you've built your own large language model then? So you're not using...
I've got one installed that I've downloaded from something called Hugging Face.
Oh, did you? Oh, wow. Okay, exciting.
Yeah.
So how's that going?
Suspicious. Great, I'm loving it.
Tell me about that.
Doing all sorts of tools with it, but I get very suspicious when I hear big tech companies whispering into the ears of our governments, telling us we're the only ones you can trust with this stuff, because they were certainly not trustworthy when it came to things like social media and using our data.
No. Well, I mean, yeah, so clearly there is a real danger about AI. Like, yeah, so are you aware of the doomers?
I'm very aware of the
Yeah,
doomers.
okay, good, right. So yeah, I'm not, I won't do the whole background of that, but just suffice it to say, there is a legitimate case for some kind of governmental oversight to prevent artificial intelligence destroying all of humanity, right?
Yeah, but that's like there's a I think there's a slight confluence of two things that are different. There's the potential of AI, in general AI, to make humans extinct and to take over the world, and suddenly it's like Terminator. But that's not what large language models are. They are not anywhere near that kind of stuff. And they're hugely powerful, and they have the ability to fundamentally disrupt Silicon Valley in millions of ways and transfer trillions of dollars of market cap away from dominant businesses today. But they're not suddenly going to be creating cyborgs that wander around shooting us all. And I think there's a slight thing where the two things have been mixed together. We're not at the cusp of general AI today. We just have some really cool models that can predict what you're about to write next.
Yeah. So and look, I think I am with you. I think the real doomer concern is not GPT-4, right? It's like GPT-6 or 7 if they keep going, and how smart will that be, and then what will its incremental goals be? You give it an objective, but it can create incremental goals for itself on the way to that objective, and one of them might be, wipe out all humans. But I do think that we're not there yet, and I think there is definitely a concern about government overreach at this moment, where it is so exciting and there is so much grassroots development of people in their attic, with their broken guitars and keyboards, building large language models and doing exciting stuff.
It really makes me realize how boring tech has been the last 10 years.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Nothing's been going on. It's basically been people building big databases and shoving a front end on themselves as a SaaS company. It's pretty boring. This feels like 1998 again, where it's like.
So tell me about your large language model then. So what are you?
I am fiddling around trying to build a really good system for small businesses to be able to create their own models on their own data.
Okay.
So I'm using it for that purpose, and I'm also using it to spit out. There's a really interesting company that's, I think, a spin-off, Stability AI, that lets you train. Can upload my audio to it.
Okay.
And it will start to then spit out. It's only trained on my music, and it will start to spit out stuff that sounds currently like total garbage, but it's quite fun. Garbage for building electronic music. It's really just like it's a soup of things I'm playing with. But I've never used Twitter really. I'm now addicted to Twitter every day, and I go, oh my god, there's a new thing I've got to try now. Because it's moving so fast.
So are you addicted to Twitter post Elon?
I'm just addicted to Twitter post people posting the latest little gadget that's powered by language models or by diffusion models. And it seems the best place to stay up to date in what seems to be exponentially improving and getting, like, the amount of products coming out every day is just mind-blowing.
Yeah, I know, it's scary, and like my kind of view on it as someone who works in the tech industry, sort of, somewhat tangentially as a marketer. I'm not a developer, but as someone who works in the industry, I feel like I need to keep up to date with it. and I just feel like I'm sprinting all day, every day to try, and
Yeah.
you just can't. I agree that Twitter's like an amazing place for AI news, updates, recommendations, all of that stuff. And I'm addicted to it like you are. I'm on it all the time, but it's impossible to keep up with everything. Like I just don't
No,
think.
totally. I've sort of I go down Pacific rabbit hole for about a week or so. I've kind of actually haven't been on the music rabbit hole for about 2 or 3 weeks now. I'm now fairly fixated on I built something over the weekend where I took every single investor report that Berkshire Hathaway's released and made this little robot that is an amazing analyst of Berkshire Hathaway. It's just a brilliant little. I was giving me advice on investing giving me tips on Coca-Cola and when Coca-Cola goes up, when it goes down. That's just based on some public information. It's like, I can't remember. I think there were 40 investor reports, annual reports Berkshire Hathaway has done. That I could get my hands on it, train this thing over an afternoon, and now it sits there and it's this
Are
little expert on Berkshire Hathaway.
you planning on selling access anytime soon?
No, it was purely just an experiment on something I'm kind of exploring. It was just an example of like, I didn't do anything. I just downloaded some tools, chucked these PDFs in there.
Yeah, yeah.
Half an hour later, there's this absolutely brilliant analyst.
I mean, it makes you wonder about what big finance is doing, and like what the rooms full of PhDs working at JP Morgan are doing with all this.
It's going to be that's an area where I think it's going to get incredibly strange in the next 10 years, not in a sort of humans going extinct sort of strange, just that when language models and AI models can access all financial information, then those models are undoubtedly going to very quickly be better than any single human at making analysis. But you'll end up in this strange world where it's almost not capitalist anymore. Allocation is not based on the market. It is based on a single artificial intelligence or single mind that is far better at allocating capital and resources than the market.
The singularity.
Yeah. So
I do.
That's one.
So I kind of feel like capitalism and competition might save us from that fate, from the singularity, because I think you kind of already see it now with like Microsoft / OpenAI and Google have got competing systems. They're also competing in other areas, right? So they're competing in search, but they're also competing in advertising in a big way. So there's no incentive for Microsoft to allow Google's LLM Bard to talk to the back end of LinkedIn and deliver ads, right? Like, because if they do that, everybody could just do everything via Google, and no one would ever have to log into LinkedIn, and so their market share would be taken away. Likewise, there's not really any incentive for Google to allow OpenAI to talk to the back end of Google Ads, right? And so I think you're going to start to see, and you could imagine the same thing in finance. If people are developing these models with their own proprietary data sets, they're not going to want to share them with anyone else. And so the different businesses are going to develop these amazing models, but there's still going to be the element of competition that stops all of them interlinking above humans, and taking over.
Absolutely. I think that competitive street, I think you're right. It could be create the barriers that stop this sort of everything just coagulating into a one sort of mega mind that outcompetes us. But it's you can see it in all these industries, but finance is one of the ones where it seems to be simplest to see AI outcompeting the individual fairly soon. I can't imagine many individual fund managers will be better than AI systems within 10 years.
No, but they might get luckier, right?
Because they might get lucky and they might have those sort of weird insights that humans have that turn out to be, those kind of contrarian insights that turn out to be the most valuable ones.
Yeah, yeah. Exciting times either way.
Mm.
So look, just as we kind of come to wrap up, there's one other thing that I kind of wanted to talk to you about, which is I'm currently in the middle of making a video about the rise of kind of like loneliness in the digital age, and how I think that lots of different platforms have contributed to that. Particularly, like, I think dating apps are causing big kind of distortions in the way that humans interact with each other. I just wanted to see what you think. Obviously, you build communities. Some of these communities exist only in the digital realm. Some of them, I think, I'm right in saying, also have some kind of
Yeah.
realization in real life, in reality. Um,
Yeah.
I thought I just wanted to get your take on, like, what what are the key ingredients of a community, as we call it, and, like, do you think that our sense of community has been distorted over the course of the last, like, 10 years or so? And, like, what are you seeing behind the curtain at Disciple?
Um, I think if we went back to the world before the internet, the word community would only mean one thing in your local community. There could be no community because all you had was your local, certainly if you went back, say 40, 50 years, the vast majority of the world had no other choice in life than to be part of their local community. I think it's quite hard to find, in my experience, that community is not been particularly damaged at this point. Your local community that you exist in day to day. So, I live in a village outside Reading. I don't think this community is getting ripped to pieces by AI and social media. It's the same community it's probably always been. I think when we start to think about community as it did 20 years ago, then it is been massively changed. So, for instance, professional community that you might have once had. So I think, I've got an 18-year-old son who's just leaving school this year. I think for him, it's the notion of a professional community or professional life is not really going to exist, because we're already saying things like, okay, let's not really bother going back to work anymore because we can just online. That gives you a mass, whatever the pros and cons of it are, your connection with your colleagues at work, your connection with the culture of the business you work in is massively diluted. I think your professional communities are going to be hugely impacted, and we really need to kind of think about that, because I think young people who go into work today, they leave college, rent a flat in London, say, sit down in that flat, and then spend 10 years on Zoom. Is not good for anyone. Now, they might build a great community around them in wherever they live, whether it's in Hackney or Acton, wherever they live in London. They might build a community around them, but it's so important, I think, during your 20s and 30s, that community you build through your profession. And I think that's going to cause a lot of problems in the generations coming through now if they don't have that. It's where you sort of spread your wings and start to really understand about a broader community that exists outside of your kind of location where you live. And I can see that creating a lot of loneliness and disconnection for the generations going into today.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the rise of AI agents as friends, and I think the fact that dating only ever exists on apps now, it does feel like, I feel for the younger generation. Like, I met my wife in real life. I wonder how many people are going to be able to actually meet a future spouse
Yeah.
in real life, because I from what I'm told, it would be weird to ask someone out in real life now.
Has
You
it
know,
really got to that point where I mean, I've been out of the market for decades now, but I can't imagine a world I can't imagine a world where you're being fed dates by algorithms. I mean, it's just horrendous to me.
yeah, scary stuff. But yeah, it's just it's something I'm interested in, and I just wonder whether we'll be able to replicate that sense of human connection digitally, because I don't think we fully can now. And I wonder whether in the future the AIs will get so good and so photorealistic and so, adept at conversation that we just won't know the difference.
See, there's an example where we talked a few minutes ago about regulation of AI. I think that, something which we will probably see within the next 5 to 10 years is to, you verify yourself on Twitter or Facebook, verified person. If you have some sort of influence, that you need to ensure that you are the real person. I think was a society this problem line identity even before AI has been a problem. And for once, all the governments need to take it really seriously that your identity online needs to be as verifiable as your customs at an airport. And if online, you can be verified as a real person. And if you're not verified, then it should be presumed you're synthetic.
Brilliant. Well, look, speaking of online identities, where can people find you online?
I lurk around on LinkedIn and increasingly Twitter.
I lost you a little bit there, but I think you said LinkedIn and Twitter.
LinkedIn and Twitter. LinkedIn's where I talk about communities, creators. In terms of Twitter's where I talk about AI.
Wonderful. Well, I will link to your profiles and the Disciple website in the show notes. But yeah, for now, Benji Vaughan, thank you very much for joining. It's been wonderful to speak to you.
Absolute pleasure, Tom. Thank you.
Thanks, Benji. Take care.